Welcome back to the Fearless Females Voice podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by my old colleague and friend, Abi MacQuarrie. Abi grew up with a very curious mind and wanted to know how things worked within the world. This mindset led her into an engineering-led path, getting her degree and now doing a PhD. It all started back when Abi went to college to study engineering. This is where she was first exposed to a male-dominated environment and found it to be quite challenging being one of the only girls in the room. Although it was tough, she stuck with it and then moved on to studying an engineering degree at the University of York, which increased her confidence levels. During this time, she experienced anxiety around her studies as she was striving for perfection. On this podcast, Abi talks about her story and her struggles which she overcame to get to where she is now. Without further ado, let's get stuck in. I wanted to start with then, what does being a fearless female mean to you?
Well, fearless female to me means pursuing your dreams. So in the face of adversity, and I don't mean that you have to crash into the room and it all be fighting off everything, but it's about maybe doing your research and taking those sometimes small steps forward to achieving those small goals, which end up being whatever your dream is. For me, it was the pursuit into engineering, but that really stemmed from a particular little motto that my grandfather used to tell me, which was it's better to try and fail than to never have tried at all. And I don't know why that stuck with me, but it did. And he was telling me that as a child. And my dad used to say it to me as well, but it was my grandfather that was I don't know if that was the person that stuck in my mind. And he ended up being a chief petty officer in the Royal Navy. So he's an engineer too. And it was just so inspiring. But when it came to, I was choosing what I wanted to do, going to college or whatever, I had loads of different things in my mind, but there's one thing that kept nagging at me, was engineering. And I thought, well, I have to give it a go. I'm a person that can't really live with the what ifs. So I'd rather go and do it. And especially at that age, what was it, 16, 17, it was just perfect to go and try it. And if it wasn't going to work out, then I'll go and try something else. Or I'll find a part of engineering that I really like, which is what ended up happening, and go and pursue that and go down that path. So being a fearless female is really sort of pursuing your dreams, but taking those little small steps and breaking it down to what you end up wanting to do or be, or whatever that dream is, even if it's going travelling or whatever. It's preparing for that and taking those small steps.
I love that definition. That's so nice. I love that, to pursue your dreams and just follow your heart and go with it.
Yeah, you've got to in life.
It's nice. I know you mentioned a bit on engineering there and a bit on your granddad as well and his motto. So how about you start with telling us a bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Abi. I'm actually a PhD student at the University of York now. I did electronic engineering degree, and then I've gone on to do my PhD in electronic engineering, but specifically communications. But I didn't sort of start out thinking I was going to do a PhD in electronic engineering at all. So if I go back to primary school, the end of primary school, I was a kid that my teachers would tell my mother that was sort of, it sounds really bad now, but they used to tell my mum that I was like a bit of a vegetable and that I wouldn't amount to things. Yeah.
What do they mean by that?
That, don't do much.
Really?
Yeah, which is quite bad now. Anyway,
is that what you thought of yourself, or is that just something?
Well, no, I think my demeanour when I was a child was very sort of gormless, and I was always away in my own little world thinking about stuff. So I wasn't very much of a talker, so it was just all in my own head. So that's probably why.
It's good.
Yes.
It's fine.
Yeah. So yes, that was, I guess, first section. And then I went to secondary school, and I was all right, but I was less than average. I was put in the lowest groups for English, maths, and science, because they were put into sets back then. I don't know what it is now. So that wasn't great, but I think that was mainly because the confidence in my academic abilities weren't that very good. Anyway, that's where I was put. So I ended up choosing my GCSEs, and in the end, I thought, well, actually, the things that I'm trying to pursue, which I had this niggling feeling of engineering, I needed English, maths, and science, then main sort of core subjects. So, sorry, go on.
So this engineering. So you mentioned your granddad was an engineer. Are there any other engineers in your family? Like, how did you get drawn to engineering? Is it from knowing about it from your family?
I used to, yeah, my dad used to he had a few motorbikes when he was younger, or he actually still does. But anyway, we used to sort of take them apart, or he did. I'd probably mess it all up and be a nuisance to him when I was a kid. But no, he used to show me, different parts, and this is what this does and things. And it was just like, oh, this is amazing. And there was times where he'd just randomly take me out for a drive, and we'd drive past like a power station, and then it'd get onto the subject of, how does the power station work, and what does that generate, and all these things that set me off on these thought processes. And he used to talk to me about like that he was fascinated with astronomy, so it was like about the stars and everything. So it was then, whoa, we're onto planets and astronauts and stuff. So it just went away with like my imagination. So I think that's what sort of set me off from when I was a child, this sort of niggling engineering thing, or science in a way anyway. But because it was like a practical application, I think that's why I was heading towards engineering.
Yeah, I can completely relate to the when I was young as well, I'm like, how does this work? Why does that happen? What is going on? So I was really curious minded. There are a lot of people, I'm like, that's why you've gone into something like engineering, where you get to figure things out, problem solve, learn how things work. So,
and then in my dad actually moved to a job at the university, and I remember this actually. I think I can't have been like older than 11, so roughly that age. And I used to say to him, "Oh, what's the university?" I was just clueless. And
as you are when you're 11.
Oh yeah. I say, "Oh, what happens there?" And he'd just say about loads of random stuff that he probably didn't know much about anyway, but he'd say about biology department and different things, and what they were working on. And then it'd end up being, only clever people go to university. So I'd get a bit like, that's certainly not me. And I don't know. Yeah, well, I mean, I was the first person ever in my family to go to university, or sort of pursue anything like that. So it was very odd to me. It was a scary sort of thought. But anyway, so that was really where it set me off. So when I was going to go sort of choose my GCSEs, I don't know whether you had about 10 or 11. I can't really remember back then how many GCSEs you sort of choose.
It was 11, but
I got
3 or 4, and then the rest were kind of compulsory. I think it was
a
long time ago.
I know. Let's not get onto that. So when I chose those, I ended up knowing that I was so overwhelmed with the amount of subjects there were. I ended up sort of scrapping some. Not that I officially dropped them. I just focused on the ones that I wanted, and I knew that would carry me through to different courses that I was potentially interested in.
Which were?
So English, maths and science were the main ones. So, and then science was split into obviously physics, chemistry and biology. So yeah, I was just concentrating my best on those. And that was sort of my strategy back then. I think my other grades, I don't even think I looked at them, but I'm not saying this is what you should do. But for me, that was what I wanted. And I thought I genuinely knew that doing that amount of work was just too overwhelming for 11 GCSEs for me. So I had to cut it down. And if there were ones that I weren't, that particularly bothered about, or they weren't going to use further ahead, then yeah, I just decided that I'd concentrate on the ones that I really did need.
Okay.
So yeah, and then because I had struggled with maths and sciences in particular, so when I really needed those, I really wanted to put in every single ounce of effort so that I could get the marks that I needed for college. So that was my aim anyway.
And it worked.
And it worked, yeah, in the end. Yeah. So yeah, then I went to York College, and I enrolled to do an advanced diploma in engineering, which was basically a mix of so many different, types of engineering. We were doing welding, we were doing electronics, literally everything you could think of was like rolled into that course. We were doing like CAD design, loads of stuff, but it did sort of open, sort of get a little taste of sort of everything, or that was on offer. But that's where I remember sitting in the classroom and we were asked to make a decade counter. So using LED lights to count in binary from like 1 to 10. So it'd be an electronics board, and you'd program it and solder it and everything so that
Nice.
it counts up from 1 to 10. And I really loved that part, and I sort of like grabbed hold of that and thought, I'm going to go and run with that as best I can. But during that time, like my first year at college was quite difficult for me. I found it quite a struggle.
In what sense?
Because in one sense it was a bit hard because it was quite intimidating, because I was only one of three females on that course.
It stems through to college as well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
How many? What was the ratio? I don't know how many there were in total in the class.
There was so the first year I think there was about 30, so we were like 10%. Okay. And then I think there was a couple that dropped out after the first year, but but there was a couple of girls that there was only, by the end of the 2 years there was only me, and the only female.
Oh, well done for staying on.
So that was a bit intimidating. But the second one was that I hadn't got to grips with my confidence in my academic knowledge. So I had to resit some maths exams, and the first time I sat the exam, I think I completely failed it. It was like an E mark. It was just, horrendous. And I just didn't know how to prepare for exams. And that was my initial thing of, if you fail to prepare, then you prepare to fail, because but I didn't know what I was doing. It's not as easy as that sometimes. Sometimes you do need to sit down and like go through things. This is how I'm going to sit the exam. This is going to, go through all of the topic in quite a bit of detail. And I always say to some of the students that obviously I work with now on the PhD that they're on their undergrad degree. So it's actually quite hard to learn. You do actually have to put in quite a bit of effort to understand that knowledge. Yeah. And at that point in my life, I didn't know how to do that. And that was sort of the initial right, I really need to understand how to do this and what works for me. So yeah, the second time round when I sat the exam, I got a nice B, which was good. But it was quite a bit of a jump from an E to a B. But it was also like kind of proved to me that actually I can do this. which is really, really nice.
So that helped your confidence then?
Yeah, it helped a little bit in that sense. It did, but I was still really quite nervous of the actual engineering environment, and me being a woman in it at that point.
It's interesting.
So
You felt that you've experienced that from a young age, because I
yeah.
actually hadn't until I was 18 and went to university. So it's almost like
Ah,
I had a lot of my school experiences in a mixed gender environment. So it was
yeah.
fine. And then actually entering uni, and I remember walking into the lecture theatre for the first day and being like, oh, like, there's over 100 people here.
Whoa.
I'm like, where are the girls?
Yeah. Yeah. Have I missed them?
Yeah, like I did notice it straight away. And although it wasn't a shock, to be fair, when you hear about engineering, it's something that isn't really, I guess it's going to be male dominated. It's just
Yeah,
that
you do. Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. It stems all the way down to college then as well.
Yeah.
University, but yeah, fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, it did for me. But I mean, I remember I went to on a I think it was on like a 3-week placement, but within the course, that's what you were asked to do. And I won't name the company, but I went to on my placement, and it was an engineering company, and they made sort of bespoke production lines. So for big companies like P&G and things like that. Anyway, I walked into the workshop one day, which was, like the reception was like next door, and I got the wrong door, stupidly, but no mind. Anyway, I walked in, and it was bizarre because I'd walked in, sort of making a nice first impression, and I was wearing a suit, like as in trousers and a shirt and a jacket, and I walked in, and it was just, it's awful because that people literally stop working literally just to look at who's walked in. And it wasn't just, I accept, the initial time, it's like, it's a stranger there. But you could tell that it was very different to then some like male, person walking in. And you could notice that after the 3 weeks, and that was quite intimidating too. And they had like, explicit posters everywhere and things, and that was just,
Oh,
it was
really?
quite intimidating. Yeah, it was quite intimidating. I think they were asked to take them down, if I'm honest.
By who? Did you say anything or?
No, they knew that there was 2 females that were coming on a placement to work for 3 weeks from college. And I think that the management had asked the workers to take them down. Or that's what was reported back to the college anyway after I'd done the placement. And yeah, that didn't happen.
How did you deal with that? Because you were fairly young then as well.
Yeah.
And you're walking into an environment where there's not only men, but also an older crowd. And then you felt the stares, let's say, or she's almost as though you don't belong there. And you're there trying to make your mark and get the best experience that you can for your own self and your education and your future. So how did you deal with that?
I mean, at first, I don't remember the first day, if I'm honest. I think it was just too overwhelming.
It's a blur.
Yeah, it was an absolute blur. But as time went on, it was mainly what I decided to do was to ask as many questions about their work as possible. And I found that the interest in it seemed to, or showing my interest in it, seemed to completely go past how I felt. It was, I'm getting back some information about what we're doing, and I'm able to then move forward and do something. So continue with my work. So that was how I found it. But at the time, I was quite young. I was about 17, and I did find it really intimidating. There were sort of risky questions asked and stuff, and I didn't handle it very well at the time. I was very, very nervous, and it was really intimidating. But my approach then was literally to just ask all the questions I could so that I could get on my work, and try and then have that rapport with your sort of colleagues, which was a bit weird because obviously I was on placement, but with the workers there. And once I'd then done that work, then it was right, on to the next thing. And then there were times where it was like, oh, she's finished it. Oh, she's cracked on with that. Like, that she needs something else to do. And I was like, yes, actually now, then maybe I start to think that actually, keep giving her work. She can actually do this. So that was nice. That was nice. I did enjoy the placement in the end once I'd sort of got over those hurdles. But it's about sort of, I guess, managing, sort of observing the environment and seeing what's the best route through to, but mainly obviously just getting on with the work and sort of making sure that you're being part of that team anyway.
So your college experience was mainly male dominated. Your work experience was mainly male dominated as well.
Yes.
You're still here now. We're going to go on to what you're doing now, but you're still here doing engineering. So at no point I'm asking, did anything put you off? Because I feel like you're still here today doing what you're doing. So you had those uncomfortable experiences.
Yes. There was times where I thought, I'm not sure I can, I'm cut out for this. But that's normal to have you have a bit of self-doubt and then you think, oh, come on, let's just carry on with it. But it's normal to have that sort of, I don't know whether this is right and things like that. But that was probably at college, it was probably my most uncomfortable experience. As time went on after college, I really got to grips and got grounded with the topic that I was on, my interest, and how I was going to, how I sort of mapped out where I was going and my own journey and what I wanted to do with engineering for my own career. And I really started to thrive then. So I guess college was my sort of most uncomfortable time and where I'd have like a bit of doubt, but I also hadn't probably dived into like the electronics, which I ended up sort of going, oh, this has really sparked something in me, so I need to go and check that out. And I thought to myself, well, I can't give up now because I haven't gone to do that yet. So I found something you love and you want to continue. I'm not letting go of it. I'm not letting go of that. And I knew that I was early on in my career, in my learning, everything. So it was really a time to, right, this is not going to stop me. This is going to, I'm going to learn from this and I can pursue what I want to do. And the other things that I used to do was actually look up other female engineers, as in what, if there was any different companies. I just try to, have some sort of like inspiration of what have they done. And, people that are out in even different industries, I don't know, in business, for example, like Karen Brady's brilliant. Managing football businesses, but people like that, so that, oh, maybe I could do the same thing in my field.
So you found that helped then?
That helped me a lot. That really helped me a lot. So
I do find it's nice looking to women, I guess, who have been through similar things. It's inspiration, or just gives you that comfort that someone's been through it, you can do it as well. I feel the same. I've got a few kind of myself. I just like that are my inspiration, let's say.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really useful, and it's sometimes a useful technique just to sort of remind yourself that you can't, you do deserve a place in this industry or whatever it is, and to keep pursuing it, and just keep learning. So that's what I found anyway.
Did you ever reach out to any of these female engineers, let's say, that if you found any?
I think at the time when I was using that, no, I didn't. And I look back and I thought, yeah, you're damn right, you should have done. Like, it would have been brilliant. It would have helped. It would have, it had been an extra inspiration. But no, at the time I wasn't confident enough. And I just was like, well, they won't want to hear from me. But no, that is a brilliant point, because that is exactly what should have happened, and in response should have been sort of another inspiring female. And if someone did that to me now, I'd be straight there, email back or whatever on the phone, because that it needs to happen. It absolutely needs to happen in order to increase the number of females in STEM. So definitely.
So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and maths subjects for those listening.
Yes, sorry.
That's all good.
Then once I've left college, I'm still on me. Wow, I'm still talking.
Keep going.
So then when I left college, like I say, this electronics I wanted to pursue, and I got an overall mark of B, I think.
Good.
I think in my advanced diploma when I left college, but that wasn't quite enough for an electronic engineering degree. I think they were after an A or something, or A star or something. So I decided this is one of the things that I had a little bit of confidence to do, and I would recommend any student or undergrad to do, thinking about going to university, is I got in touch with the department at the University of York and basically asked for a tour around, which they happily did. And I know that they do tours around the department in groups of people that are interested in the department, but I wanted one by myself. And it was brilliant because I got that one-to-one with somebody, and it happened to be one of the professors that was an admissions tutor as well. So, as all the admissions for undergrad students. And I was, again, quite fascinated with the department and our different projects that they were telling me about. And I wanted to find out about the foundation degree. So they did a foundation year before the actual degree. And I ended up enrolling onto that, which was brilliant because it was like basically a year of fast track physics and A-level maths, which was absolutely insane.
That sounds really difficult.
Yeah,
fast
it was
track as well.
Insane. Yeah,
those two are some of the hardest subjects.
Let's pick two. Yeah, it was really difficult, and everything was like an assignment every single week for the full year, and the pass mark was like 60% to get through, which I know usually a degree is like 40% for a pass. But it was the best thing that I ever did, and it really, they're one of the things that I like to speak to the students about or school students about is there's always a route that you can either sidestep and then take a step forward. So I didn't do any A-levels at all, but there is a route into what you're wanting to pursue in another way. So I sort of did like a sidestep by doing the foundation year before going on to do the degree. And to be honest, it was the best thing that I've ever done. It had such a confidence boost after that year in my own academic ability to be able to move forward onto the degree. I mean, it was hard, but the teachers, the tutors on that year were absolutely amazing. One was my supervisor for my whole degree, and she's still a friend now. She came to my wedding, everything. She's the most inspiring woman I've ever met. I absolutely love her. Janet Clegg, if you're listening, or going to listen.
We'll be listening.
Yeah, I'll share it with her, so she'll definitely have to listen. And yeah, there was another lady, Helen Sharples, and Alice and Phil, that really helped me through that year to build my confidence and really make me realise that I deserved a place here, and I deserved to go on to do the degree and to really make it and explore my field of interest and really make the best of what I could do. Along with loads of other students, it wasn't just me, but it was really, really good. And it made me realise that as much as I'm a minority in that class, there wasn't many girls at all.
I was going to say gender minority.
Yes, gender minority. It still was, I was still totally comfortable and, you know, encouraged to answer different questions, which was a bit of a flaw of mine. I hated doing that. But, you know, I was no different to the rest. Honestly, it was the best experience ever, and that really had a boost from that year onwards. I've just literally taken off, and I pursue everything that I wanted to do from those people. And it's so good to have those people, that you find those people in your life.
That is amazing. It sounds like you had such a good environment, good people around you, and it just sounds like it really did catapult you up in your confidence.
Yeah, it definitely did.
Into where you're at now. Do you think that parents and students are aware of these opportunities and sidesteps currently that you can do to get to where you want to be enough?
Not as much as you know, that there are actually these sidesteps out there. I don't think it's as well known as what it should be. I don't know, I think it's very, you know, the mainstream sort of, you know, GCSEs, A levels, university, there's a lot to do with, don't get me wrong, there's apprenticeships and there's different things to do, but in terms of the route, if you're wanting to pursue like higher education and go to university, I don't know whether there are actually those routes are that clear and that obvious for, you know, people to go down. I've done a bit of work with the university to do outreach activities and try and get the different courses known, which includes, you know, the degree, but doing the foundation year first. But I don't think it's as well known as what it should be. And personally for me, I was just a student that it wasn't the right time for me to do A levels, like in terms of me, where I was at in my life. And that could be the same for other students.
How are your family in terms of how do they take the news that you were like, right, this is what I want to do and this is what I'm going to do, as opposed to take the normal or standard route, which is what I did, because that's the only thing I knew and was pushed into doing, let's say. It's almost like back in the day when I was studying, it's like, right, you've done your GCSEs, okay, cool, A levels, okay, great, now you're applying to uni, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, like I don't even know what else there is actually, so that's the only path I took.
Completely. That's the sort of view that I've picked up on from other students, you know, throughout my time at uni. But for my family, like I say, it was quite different. That they were very supportive in what I was doing, but they were also clueless. Okay. So that's fine, and, you know, very encouraging to further my knowledge and pursue what I wanted to do. But it was, in terms of, it was a bit of a struggle because it was, you know, I don't know these routes. I was lucky because my dad knew a researcher at the time in the electronics department, which is why I could contact the department, which I would recommend just contacting, you know, going to the website and, you know, contacting them directly. But when I was, you know, doing so, my dad knew a researcher, so I contacted him first, just to say, like, I'm quite interested in electronics, and, you know, can I get a sort of a tour around? But from then, I ended up meeting up with him a few more times afterwards, after I'd started at the university, just to sort of get some more inspiration of what he was doing, what he was working on. I mean, I did my degree in control systems, and he was doing research in communications, and now I'm doing research in communications. So that's how inspiring he was. So I'm completely switched, really. But, yeah, so that was lucky for me, to have that person that I could sort of ask about the foundation here, which is why I don't think it's that widely known, even though I've done my bit since then to try and make it more known that there's a foundation here, there's a different route. But yeah, it's about trying to get in touch with those people that have been through it. I guess it goes back to the same thing of trying to get those contacts with people that have been through things and are a bit slightly more knowledgeable, even if they're just like a few years ahead of you in the degree, to sort of guide you, because at that time my family just didn't know. They wanted to help, but they just didn't know how to, with not knowing the university process.
But at the same time, they've done the best thing possible, which is to actually support you. So it's almost like you know, they may not have known, but they've done such a good thing in helping you get to where you are just by support. Because I know some parents who are like, you must go to university, or you must do this, or you must do that. And that's then something that impacts the person.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
They would have seen all the benefits and all the enhancement in confidence and everything that you've got from this year. So it's good.
Yeah, definitely. I can completely understand that the other way is totally overwhelming. My husband, he never went to university, didn't do A levels, and he's such a practical person. And he can think on his feet, and I take things a bit slower and I'll try and work things out and things, but he's really snappy, quick on his feet about certain problems, and he's a very practical person. So his route was he went through an apprenticeship, and that was the way that he wanted to go, and he's a mechanical engineer now. But yeah, there's, like I say, there's different routes, but I can see that that's hard if you have doubts about the university and that's the route you want to take. You're not sure that that's what you want to do. Yeah, it's been difficult. So supportive family and supportive network is crucial.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. So yeah, I did the foundation. Yeah, still on me.
All about you.
Yeah, all about me today. I will shut up soon. Yeah, so then I went on to the first and second year. Within the second year, I had to decide whether I was going to do what's called an undergraduate master's. So the third and the fourth year changed. So I had to decide in my second year whether I was going to do the masters or not, basically. Okay. I think it was different modules or something in the third year. So depending whether you're bachelor's or you were masters. So anyway, I decided to do the masters purely because I just didn't feel ready to leave university. I don't know whether that's a good decision, but I just didn't feel ready to go. So
you loved it. You loved it.
It's just like, I'll just stay on another year. It might be a bit harder, but I didn't think of that one. So I made that decision. So it ended up being I was at 5 years at university, including my foundation. It was quite a long time. But
it's quite normal for engineering graduates, I think. So I did 5 years. Well, I did 4 years to do my master's, and then 1 year in industrial placement.
Cool.
I worked in industry, so that made up my 5 years. So actually, I think a lot of my colleagues as well who have got their masters have done the same thing. So I think it's quite normal for an engineering degree or an engineering student to go through that.
Oh, good. Well, that's all right then.
In there with the same boat.
Yeah. Yeah, but sort of towards the end of the 5 years, I was completely burnt out. And I sort of go back to this learning how to learn thing that I keep saying about. I had concentrated so much on this degree. I'd literally put all my eggs in one basket. And if this degree hadn't worked out, I don't know, I would have been completely devastated. And I look back on that now, and it was totally unhealthy. It was not the right attitude to have. It affected me so much. So the first, after my foundation year, I was in this sort of bubble of, I'm ecstatic, like I've built up some confidence and I was away. But as the years went on, I got, how do you call it? Obsessed with all of my work and really preparing for everything. And, I was aiming for this 1 mark and all this sort of thing. And it got to a point where, by the end of my degree, I was completely burnt out. I couldn't do any more. I just needed a complete reset, don't do anything for a few months at all. But I look back, and that is where I started with starting with anxiety and not knowing how to deal with it, or what the hell was going wrong with me anyway. So I was totally obsessed with my degree. If that didn't work out, I was just doomed, or so I thought.
But why did you think that? Do you know what made you so obsessed or put pressure on yourself to perform in a certain way?
I genuinely think it was just from me. But I mean, there was at the beginning in my foundation year, there was sort of a family circumstance that made me feel like I was completely on my own. And it was literally me against the world. It wasn't, but that's how I felt. And it was really hard. And I got in my mind that if I don't get this degree and I don't get, a decent job and all this sort of thing, which, I needed this degree to then get the decent job or go on a grad scheme or whatever to support myself and, sort of live independently.
Yeah.
If I didn't get this degree, that everything would literally crash and burn. And I was so obsessed with this that it just led into this snowball of anxiety, and I was just not in a healthy place at all. And I learn how to deal with that now and not to think like that. Yeah. And I've done a lot of work to do that, but at the time it wasn't a good place. And I try and sort of reiterate to others that maybe that sort of tendency, that it isn't the end of the world. And again, there are other routes into your dream job and things like that are available.
There are a lot of pressures on students. I think from a young age these days as well, when they're in school, when they're doing GCSEs. So I completely understand that, especially because it's almost like your future is riding on this degree, let's say. In order, if you do well, you'll then get your job, your grad scheme, whatever it is that you want, which will then kind of excel you into your great career that you've always wanted.
Yeah, that's exactly how I thought.
But there is so much pressure on that, and that comes from everywhere. So what advice would you give for someone who's currently going through that, who's currently going in to get their degree and they're struggling with this as well and having these kind of thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I would say that as with most, I would have said probably all universities, they do have, at the University of York anyway, they have what's called the Open Door team, which is, you can go in there to talk about some of the issues that you're feeling and the pressures of university life or student life. So I definitely recommend going there. That's what I did. If that's not quite enough, then you have to speak to your supervisor. So you know, that person is not just there for your own academic work. They are there in order to point you in the right direction if something is not quite right in your family, or like you say, mental health or anything like that. And it's obviously confidential. They're there to help you. And I would say that you need to speak to somebody before it sort of, I don't mean spiral out of control, but before it sort of gets any deeper, because it's all right to be very determined and you want to pursue this degree and you really want, you know, the mark that you're aiming for, and it's great to have them goals, and it, you know, it's great to work towards them. But if you really do feel that you have, you know, all of your eggs in one basket and you're literally only focused on that and you don't care about anything else, then it is time to sort of speak to someone and take a step back, because eventually you will burn out. You can't always be that focused and determination on one thing. So I just recommend that they need to sort of speak to somebody and just let it out, and maybe somebody that maybe could just give them a pointer in the right direction, or for guidance and help, so that it doesn't, you know, go too far. But like I say, it is good to have your goals and your ambitions.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's always good to talk to someone about these things. That's where it comes back to the network. So if you've got your family, your friends, as you said, supervisors, university staff, whoever it is, just to kind of let it out. And I agree. It's interesting that you kind of, your whole world is consumed by this degree almost. How did you deal with coming out of burnout?
Oh, wow. Well, it took me a while, but I mean, sort of lucky, because when I finished my degree, I was then due to start a grad scheme the following September. The September of the same year. But I'd finished, I think, at the beginning of June. Finished my degree, you know, sat all exams, etc. So I had a good few months to sort of reset, and that's where I dealt with my burnout. But for me, it was really addressing what had happened over those years or throughout my degree, and getting to grips with what works for me. So how can I reset, and how can I build that into my sort of everyday life? So for me, for example, it's going for a run, or going to the gym. So
that's an outlet for a lot of people.
I absolutely love it. It's like, you know, complete reset, and I'll just think about, you know, it just completely wipes my brain, which is brilliant sometimes. So that's one of the things that works for me. But I went on holiday in between that time, from finishing university and start the grad scheme. I made sure that I was going to do some things that were fun for me and that did not relate to my degree or the grad scheme whatsoever. So it was just fun things. I think I worked part-time, just to earn a bit of money at the time. But mainly it was to build and sort of reconnect with my support networks and my family and my friends, and just do things that were for me. So that's how I really dealt with that burnout before starting my grad scheme in the September.
So you went into your grad scheme nice and fresh.
Yes.
Good thinking, positive vibes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Again, that was male environment. Obviously, apart from you were there.
We actually worked together. So when Abi was on her grad scheme, I was, I think, 2 or 3 years ahead in the engineering department. So we ended up being on the same team, which was great. And we worked together on a few projects as well. So it was always nice seeing a female in the office where we work. So yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, it was really, really nice. I absolutely loved it. It was really nice. But it was male dominated. We did have quite a few like tight deadlines. We had a lot of things to deal with and to manage. So we were on the an installment of a new production line, and there was a lot of different sections of it and how that would all work together was quite challenging to deal with at times. We managed it. We managed it.
We always do, right? Engineers always
Yeah,
somehow
absolutely.
manage
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah.
there. So how did you deal with these high pressure environments, I guess, with the projects?
Strangely, I'm sort of like a duck. I'm like paddling underneath and going mad, but at the top, like my face is probably like, poker straight. And but yeah, no, inside it's quite challenging, and my mind is racing like mad. Dealing with I've got so many questions running through my head. Of things that have popped up when we've been sat in high pressure sort of meetings, and we're making big decisions. But again, I always go back to like my preparing things. So I'll write down all the information. I'm an information person, so I literally want every detail.
Yeah.
So I'll literally write down a list of everything that I've heard or I've picked up on, and the information I've been given. And then I always find that a teamwork is, if I don't know certain information, then I'll go find that out. So there's always somebody, and there's different teams within the business that will know the answer or knows who to speak to for that answer, who to get into contact with. So I generally use that preparation, and then also to ask lots of questions, because you're not always expected to know the answer straight off. I think it's cleverer to actually know where to look and go to ask a certain person and get the right direction about what information that you need. Nobody knows everything, so you sort of a team effort.
Yeah, it's good. I was just thinking back to that high pressure environment. I remember times when we were working on this production line, and I was running multiple other projects as well. You said something along the lines of keeping that poker face or that straight face. So at work, you're just kind of like, right, come at me. You've got this face on, game face almost.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to live a train ride away from work. And there was a time or a period of time where we were working ridiculously long hours. And there were multiple deadlines all happening at the same time. So it's almost like you needed to be in multiple places at once. I remember it really got to me. This is my kind of first ever job. And I remember getting on the train probably like 7:30 or 8 or something. And I, like, deep down at work, I was just really upset. I was just like, oh my God, like I'm really struggling, but I never let it show. And then as soon as I got on the train by myself in the evening, I just like burst out crying on the train. And that is almost like the first breakdown that I had, like, wow, this is so intense. I remember someone on the train was so worried and asking me, like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I just need a moment.
Yeah.
From there, it just made me think as well, like, I was really trying hard not to break down at work. That was my one thing. I always say this now as well, like if times get tough, just deal with it. Luckily, I've learned how to manage that a bit better. So at the time, it was like very new to me. Now, obviously, it's quite ongoing, right? But it's just dealing with it in a different way. So yeah, I remember that really clearly, and just being on that train and we're like, oh my God, what is going on? And then what happened? I went home, ate, slept, and then back in the office the next day.
In the office again, yeah. No, absolutely. I do remember times when I come home and I'd just be stressed out of my mind with different things, and even contemplating, ringing somebody up, and it was like you say, it's like 8 o'clock at night, and you're like, no, Abby, don't do that. But but when you're really in that moment and you're trying to get things moving forward and progressing, it's what you think about. That's why the time to relax is really, really important. This work-life balance thing, which is sometimes really hard to balance, but it is really important. So
agree.
We've always had that. We've all had times where we've literally left work and had a meltdown, and we have.
So tell us, what is it that you do now? You mentioned a PhD.
Yes. So I'm in my final year of my PhD in electronic engineering. So I'm within the communications research group within the department at the University of York. I so once I left my grad scheme, I just felt, again, this sort of motto thing, that I wanted to try to do my PhD. And if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. It was just seemed like a good time in my life to do that, and I really wanted to pursue it. So that's what I did. It was a bit scary, if I'm honest. Again, it was like actually so unfamiliar. I don't know anybody that is doing a PhD at all, as evident. I don't have a clue. Anyway, so I went to an interview in the department, and with the professor I was interested in his project, basically. So I went to go speak to him about it. And at first, well, the project was talking about massive MIMO, which MIMO is multiple input, multiple output. And at the time, like I said, I did control systems when I was doing my degree.
Yeah.
And that came up, MIMO, multiple input, multiple output. And I thought that this project was on control system. It wasn't at all. So there was I going into this conversation with the professor about this project, and it turns out it just was nothing to do with anything that I thought at all. And it's really difficult when you sat there and you're reading this project proposal. It's so technical and so in depth that I'm trying to pick apart the words to try and make sense of what I'm getting myself into.
Yeah.
So that was really hard. I got it completely wrong. My professor was like, "No, this is not what the project's about," which was quite embarrassing. But never mind. But he was really nice, really encouraging. And he also informed me that he'd not done communications when he'd done his degree. He'd sort of started in the communications field when he started his PhD, which is a while ago, but still. So it gave me a bit of encouragement to actually, well, let's try it. Because once he'd actually explained what the project was about, it was like this spark of, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And there was another project that I was interested in as well, which I basically had to choose between. But the other sort of, I say half of me, but the other thing I'm really passionate about is learning, how to learn, and how to gain more women in STEM subjects. Which this project was more, as much as it was an electronic engineering PhD project, it was more geared towards that neurological thinking of an engineering student. And so that was the sort of the two things that I was choosing between. And so in the end, I chose this massive MIMO that was in communications. But and then the same. But what I love about my PhD is that it's very technical and it's very much maths based. But it turns out that I really like that, and it's very software based. But I also have this opportunity to teach other students, younger students, and also to do like outreach events, as I've briefly mentioned, to sort of give presentations to school students, college students, and really have that involvement with sort of spreading the message of that there are women in industry, and there are women in these engineering fields or STEM subjects. And we need to sort of spread the word so that we can get more, and really understand the sort of intimidations and the sort of roadblocks that some students might come up against. So that's what I love both sides, and I'm able to do both, which is brilliant.
That's amazing. It's so good that you do that outreach piece. I love that. I've done that myself as well, going to school. So it's such a good thing. And I love seeing when you're going to talk to young girls, let's say, and them not knowing a thing, and then you telling them, and it's like, oh, I want to apply, and oh, I might do that. And I'm like, yes, I think I've just change someone's life. Like, it's just really nice.
Yeah, it's so rewarding, and it shouldn't really be about me, but I do, it shouldn't, but it's really rewarding. But it's just like that look on the face, and you're opening their mind to like a world of possibilities that they maybe didn't know before, of the different careers and different jobs that there are available. And because I just think back, and I think I didn't know that these sort of jobs were available and that they actually exist. So to see that is just brilliant. So.
It's a good way of giving back.
Definitely.
So then tell us, Abi, what's next for you?
Personally, in terms of my career and after my PhD, obviously I'll continue with like the work of trying to encourage more women in STEM, but my ultimate aim is to be a lecturer at a university. My experience, I know, it's scary, but I know eventually. I'd love to be a lecturer, and when I first started, I didn't think that was something that I wanted to do. So I did a placement when I was doing my undergrad degree, which was teaching, I think it's called York Students in Schools. And, I don't mind teaching. I mean, I love teaching now, but back then I thought, oh, maybe it's not quite for me. I need to go see industry, etc. But my experience throughout my degree of literally the quality of teaching and the inspiration, I have to give something back. I'm so passionate about giving something back to other students and to other shy, sort of not very confident students in their own academic abilities and things, that I'm really driven to. I want to be a lecturer, and I want to sort of pass this knowledge on, pass all this information that I'm doing now, pass it on to someone else and let them grow with it and do what, progress with it and things like that. So that's my main passion. And so that's the aim, and I'll take little steps till I get there.
I love that. At the start of this podcast, I asked you what it means being a fearless female to you. And you talked about pursuing your dreams and kind of reaching your goals. And that is exactly what you're going to do, because you are a fearless female. You will 100% get that. I can so see you as a lecturer. You will definitely get there. And I don't mind sitting in one of your lectures as well when that happens.
Well, I'll invite you if I get one. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, thank you. It's just taking one step at a time and just sort of reaching out to people, which I didn't do when I was younger, and asking those questions with, what are the routes and how do I do this? And, it really, honestly, nobody gets through life with, on their own. They ask questions and they get advice, and, that's the way to do it.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Abi. It's been a pleasure to have you. I really enjoyed the chat.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been absolutely amazing. It's just been a great talking to you.
Cool. Thanks, Abi.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to the Fearless Females podcast. Be sure to join our Facebook group called Fearless Females and stay tuned for the next episode. Bye for now.